My name is Isabella Whitlock. I am 63 years old, and I live in the large family estate where I built my business empire. On the morning my family tried to kill me, I didn't know it then, of course. I thought it was a happy day. I was sitting at my large dining room table. The oak surface was covered with legal documents. I was ready to sign away my life's work, the Whitlock Supply Group, to my only son. I trusted him completely. My daughter-in-law Claire came into the room. She wore a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. She handed me a ceramic mug. "Here is your coffee, Isabella," she said sweetly. "Just how you like it." I reached for the mug. Before my fingers touched the handle, Patricia, my housekeeper of 18 years, stumbled. She crashed into the table. The mug tipped over hard. Hot dark liquid splashed across the contracts and onto my lap. I gasped. I started to scold her for being clumsy, but Patricia grabbed my wrist. Her grip was tight and desperate. She leaned close to my ear so no one else could hear. She whispered 4 words that changed everything. "Do not drink it." But before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? My name is Isabella Whitlock. I am 63 years old. The morning sun was coming through the tall windows of my dining room. It should have been a beautiful day. The light was golden and warm. It hit the polished oak of the long dining table, making the wood shine. But I did not feel warm. I felt cold. I felt a deep, heavy tiredness in my bones that I could not shake off. I sat at the head of the table. I am Isabella Whitlock. I was 63 years old that day. In front of me there were stacks of paper. White paper, crisp and clean. They were legal documents. Contracts, transfer deeds, financial agreements. They were arranged in neat piles, waiting for one thing, my signature. I held a heavy black pen in my hand. My fingers were trembling slightly. I told myself it was just my age. I told myself it was just the dizzy spells I had been having for the last 6 months. But deep down, maybe my body knew something my mind did not. My son, David, was standing by the window. He was 35 years old. He was a handsome man. He had my dark eyes and his father's strong jawline. He was wearing a gray suit that cost more than my first car. He looked powerful. He looked ready, but he also looked impatient. "Mom," he said. He didn't turn around to look at me. He was watching the driveway, looking for the lawyers. "Are you okay? You haven't touched the papers yet." "I am just thinking, David," I said. My voice was quiet. "This is a big step. It is 40 years of my life." David turned around then. He gave me a smile. It was the smile he used when he wanted something. It was the smile that used to work on me when he was a little boy asking for candy. "It's time to rest, Mom," he said. He walked over and put a hand on my shoulder. His hand felt heavy. "You've worked enough. Look at you. You're tired. You've been sick. The doctor said you need to reduce your stress. Let me take the burden. Let me run Whitlock Supply." I looked up at him. I wanted to see love in his eyes. I wanted to see gratitude. I had built the company from nothing after his father died. I had saved every penny. I had worked 18-hour days while he was in private school, while he was in college, while he was traveling Europe on my dime. But I didn't see love. I saw hunger. He was looking at the pen in my hand, not at my face. "I know, David," I said. "I am ready." I wasn't ready, but I felt like I had no choice. My health was failing. For months I had been feeling strange, dizzy, nauseous. My heart would race for no reason. My vision would get blurry. The doctors couldn't find anything specific. They called it stress or age-related decline. They told me to retire. And David agreed. He agreed very loudly. "Where is Claire?" David asked, looking toward the kitchen door. "You need your coffee. You can't sign without your morning coffee." "I'm coming." Claire's voice floated in from the kitchen. Claire was my daughter-in-law. She had been married to David for 5 years. She was beautiful in a sharp, modern way. She had blonde hair that was always perfectly styled, and she wore clothes that were very fashionable. We were not close. I had tried in the beginning. I invited her to lunches. I tried to talk to her about her life. But she always kept a wall up. She was polite but cold. She treated me like a distant aunt, not a mother-in-law. But lately, that had changed. In the last few months, as I got sicker, Claire had become very helpful. She came over every day. She cooked meals. She organized my medicine. She drove me to appointments. "Here we go," Claire said. She walked into the dining room. She was carrying a silver tray. On the tray was my favorite ceramic mug. It was blue with white flowers. "I made it just how you like it, Isabella," Claire said. Her voice was sweet, almost too sweet. Like syrup, double cream, 2 sugars, and I added a pinch of cinnamon. It's good for your circulation. Thank you, Claire, I said. You are so good to her, David said to his wife. He looked at her with approval. Mom, you are lucky. Most daughter-in-laws wouldn't care this much. I just want Isabella to be comfortable, Claire said. She walked toward me. I watched her approach. She was walking carefully, balancing the tray. That was when Patricia came in. Patricia was my housekeeper. She had been with me for 18 years. She was more than a housekeeper. She was the one who was there when my husband died. She was the one who made me tea at midnight when I was crying from exhaustion. She was the one who raised David as much as I did because I was always working. Patricia was 55. She was a quiet woman. She didn't talk much. She just did her work, and she did it perfectly. But today, Patricia looked different. She was standing by the sideboard, holding a stack of napkins. Her face was pale. Her eyes were darting around the room. She looked nervous. She looked scared. I frowned. Patricia was never scared. She was the strongest woman I knew. Patricia, I said. Are you all right? Patricia jumped. Yes, Mrs. Whitlock, I am fine. Claire ignored Patricia. She reached the table. Here, drink this before the lawyers get here, Claire said. It will wake you up. She reached out to place the mug on the table, right next to the stack of contracts. I reached out my hand. Thank you. It happened in a split second. As my fingers were about to touch the handle of the blue mug, Patricia moved. She didn't walk. She lunged. She came rushing forward from the sideboard. It looked like she had tripped. Her foot seemed to catch on the edge of the rug. She fell forward hard. Her body slammed into the edge of the heavy oak table. Oh, Patricia cried out. Her arm flailed out. Her hand hit the silver tray that Claire was holding. Crash! The blue mug tipped over. It hit the wood with a heavy thud. The coffee went everywhere. It was a dark, brown flood. It splashed across the table. It soaked into the white papers. The ink on the contracts started to run immediately. The liquid poured over the edge of the table and onto my lap. Ow! I yelled. The coffee was hot. It burned my legs through my pants. I pushed my chair back, scraping it against the floor. You idiot! David screamed. The room exploded into noise. David rushed forward. Look what you did. Look at the papers, you stupid woman. Claire dropped the tray. It clattered loudly on the floor, her face twisted. The sweet smile vanished instantly. She looked furious. Her eyes were wide and angry. Patricia, Claire shrieked. What is wrong with you, you clumsy fool? You ruined everything. I stood up, shaking the hot liquid off my pants. My heart was pounding. David, stop yelling, I said. My voice was shaky. It was an accident. An accident? David shouted. His face was red. Look at this mess, Mom. The contracts are ruined. We have to print them all again. The lawyers will be here in 10 minutes. He grabbed a handful of the soggy papers and threw them on the floor. He looked like a child having a tantrum. Patricia was on the floor. She had fallen hard. She was on her hands and knees. She didn't look up. She didn't apologize. She was breathing hard. Patricia, are you hurt? I asked. I tried to step around the puddle of coffee to help her. Don't help her, Mom, David snapped. She needs to clean this up right now. Get a towel, Patricia, now. Claire was standing very still. She wasn't looking at the papers anymore. She was looking at the puddle of spilled coffee. She was staring at it with a strange intensity. She looked disappointed and anxious. I will get a towel, Patricia said softly. Her voice was trembling. She stood up slowly. She wouldn't look at David. She wouldn't look at Claire. She kept her head down. I am so sorry, Mrs. Whitlock, Patricia said. She moved to my side. She took a napkin from her pocket and started dabbing at the coffee on my blouse. It's okay, Patricia, I said. It's just coffee. David is overreacting. He is not, Claire said. Her voice was cold. You are clumsy, Patricia. You are getting too old for this job. Maybe it is time you retired too. Patricia froze for a second. Her hand stopped moving on my blouse. Then she continued wiping. David, Claire said, turning to her husband. Go to the study. Print the copies again. Hurry, I will help Isabella get changed. She can't sign the papers smelling like coffee. Fine, David spat. He glared at Patricia one last time. Clean this mess up. If there is a stain on this table, you are paying for it. David stormed out of the room. I heard his heavy footsteps going down the hall to the study. Claire let out a long breath. She looked at me. The fake smile came back, but it was weaker this time. I am sorry, Isabella, Claire said. I wanted this morning to be perfect for you. I will go to the kitchen and make you another cup. Fresh coffee, you need it. No, I said. I'm fine, Claire, I don't want any more. Nonsense, Claire insisted. She was already moving toward the kitchen. You need the energy, I'll be right back. Patricia, help her out of those wet clothes. Claire walked fast. She disappeared into the kitchen. The door swung shut behind her. Suddenly, the room was quiet. It was just me and Patricia. The smell of coffee was strong in the air. It smelled bitter, burnt. I looked at Patricia. She was down on her knees again, picking up the soaked pieces of paper. Her hands were shaking badly. Patricia, I said gently, it's okay, David is just stressed. Don't worry about the table. Patricia stopped moving. She didn't pick up the paper. She remained on her knees, staring at the brown puddle on the floor. Then she looked up at me. I will never forget the look in her eyes. In 18 years, I had never seen Patricia look like this. Her eyes were wide with terror. Her face was gray. Her lips were pale. She looked at the kitchen door to make sure Claire was gone. Then she looked at the hallway to make sure David wasn't coming back yet. She scrambled up from the floor. She came close to me, very close. She invaded my personal space, which she never did. She grabbed my arm. Her fingers dug into my flesh. It hurt. Mrs. Whitlock, she whispered. Her voice was a hiss of air. Patricia, what? SHH, she hissed. She looked at the kitchen door again. She pulled me down slightly so she could speak directly into my ear. Her breath was warm and fast on my cheek. Listen to me, she whispered. The words were rushed, desperate. That was not an accident. I did not trip. I pulled back and looked at her. What? I spilled it on purpose, Patricia said. Her eyes were locked onto mine. I had to. Why? I asked. I was confused. My brain couldn't process what she was saying. Why would you do that? Patricia squeezed my arm harder. Tears were forming in her eyes. Because of what I saw, she whispered. In the kitchen. Just now, what did you see? Claire, Patricia said. The name came out like a curse. I saw her put something in the cup after she poured the coffee. She took a small bottle from her pocket. She put drops in it. Lots of drops. My heart stopped. The room seemed to tilt sideways. Drops, I repeated. Like sweetener, Patricia shook her head violently. No, not sweetener, it was a glass bottle, no label. She wore gloves when she touched it. And she smiled, Mrs. Whitlock. She smiled when she stirred it in. I stared at her. I couldn't breathe. My mind was racing, trying to reject what she was saying. This was crazy. This was a soap opera. This wasn't my life. Claire was cold, yes. David was greedy, yes, but this. You're wrong, I said, but my voice was weak. You saw wrong. I did not, Patricia said firmly. I know what I saw, and I know the smell. Smell the air, Mrs. Whitlock, under the coffee. Smell it, I took a breath. I smelled the strong roast of the coffee beans, I smelled the cream, but then, there was something else. A faint metallic smell, like bitter almonds, like chemicals. Do not drink it, Patricia said again. Whatever she brings you next, do not drink it. But, I stammered, David, does he know? Patricia looked down. He was standing right there, ma'am. He was watching her do it. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. The air left my lungs. My son, my beautiful baby boy. No, I whispered. No. Yes, Patricia said. They are waiting for you to die, Mrs. Whitlock. They don't want the company next year. They want it now. And they want the insurance. Insurance? I heard them, Patricia said. Last night in the library, they thought you were asleep. They were talking about a policy, a double indemnity policy. I felt sick, truly sick. The dizziness I had felt for months. Was that them too? Had they been doing this slowly? What do? I asked. I felt like a child. I felt helpless. You have to be smart, Patricia said. She let go of my arm. She stepped back as we heard footsteps in the kitchen. Claire was coming back. She is making another cup, Patricia whispered fast. If you refuse it, she will know that you know. She will suspect. You have to pretend. Pretend? Switch the cups, Patricia said. Her eyes were hard now. The fear was gone, replaced by a cold determination. There is a clean mug on the sideboard. I put it there this morning for myself. It has water in it. When she isn't looking, switch them. I can't, I said. My hands were shaking. You have to, Patricia said, or you are dead. The kitchen door opened. Claire walked out. She had a new smile on her face. She was holding a new mug. It was red. Here we go, Claire announced brightly. Take two. This one is even better. I made sure to add extra sugar for the shock. She walked toward me. I looked at Patricia. Patricia was back on the floor, wiping up the mess, acting like a servant. She didn't look at me. I looked at Claire. I looked at the red mug in her hand. It looked like a normal mug. It looked like a kind gesture. But now I knew. It was a weapon. I felt a coldness spread through my chest. It wasn't the coldness of death. It was the coldness of rage. I had spent 40 years building a business in a world of men who wanted to crush me. I had raised a son alone. I had survived grief and loneliness. They thought I was an old woman. They thought I was weak. They thought I was stupid. I stood up straighter. I forced a smile onto my face. It felt stiff like a mask. "Thank you, Claire," I said. My voice was steady. "You are so thoughtful." I reached out and took the red mug. It was warm in my hands. "Drink up," Claire said. She watched me. Her eyes were focused on the rim of the cup. "David will be back in a minute with the papers." "I will," I said. "I just need to sit down. I feel a bit shaken from the spill." "Of course," Claire said. "Sit, drink." I sat down. I brought the cup to my lips. I smelled the bitter almond scent again. It was stronger this time. Claire was watching me. She was holding her breath. "Is something wrong?" she asked. "No," I said. "It's just hot." "Blow on it," she said. I pretended to blow on the steam. Just then David yelled from the study down the hall. "Claire, where is the toner? The printer is out of toner." Claire rolled her eyes. She looked annoyed. She looked at me, then at the hall. "1 second," she said to me. "Don't let it get cold." She turned around. She walked toward the hall to shout at David. "It's in the bottom drawer, David. Look with your eyes." Her back was turned. It was my only chance. I looked at Patricia. Patricia nodded once. A tiny, almost invisible nod. There was a glass of water on the sideboard, just like Patricia said, and next to it, an empty mug that Patricia had been using for her tea earlier. My hand moved fast, faster than it had moved in years. I poured the poisoned coffee into the empty mug on the sideboard. I poured the water from the glass into my red mug. It took 3 seconds. I sat back down. I held the red mug with the water in it. Claire turned back around. "Men," she sighed. She shook her head. "They are useless without us." "Yes," I said, "they are." I lifted the red mug. I looked Claire in the eyes. "To family," I said. Claire smiled. It was a triumphant smile. "To family." I tilted the cup back and drank. It was just warm water, but to Claire it looked like I had just swallowed my death. I said. "Delicious." Claire's shoulders relaxed. She looked relieved. "I'm glad you like it," she said. "I really am." She walked over to the table and sat down opposite me. She picked up her own cup, a green one that was sitting on the table from earlier. "I think I'll join you," she said. "It's been a stressful morning." I froze. I watched her hand reach for her green cup. And then I saw it. I saw the mistake. In the confusion of the spill, in the chaos of Patricia falling, the mugs on the sideboard had been moved. The mug I had poured the poison into wasn't an empty spare mug. It was the green mug, Claire's mug. Patricia had moved it to the sideboard to clean the table. I had poured the poisoned coffee into Claire's cup, and now Claire was lifting it to her lips. "Cheers, Isabella," she said. I opened my mouth to speak, to warn her, to scream don't, because I am not a murderer, I am a mother. But then I looked at her eyes. I saw the greed. I saw the hate she had been hiding for 5 years. I thought about the drops. I thought about David watching. I thought about them waiting for me to die. I thought about the last 6 months of my life, feeling sick and weak, while they smiled and poisoned me slowly. I closed my mouth. I held my warm water tight. "Cheers, Claire," I said softly. Claire took a big sip. She swallowed. "That's good," she said. She licked her lips. "A bit bitter, though." "It's the special blend," I said. Claire smiled. "Yes, it is." She set the cup down. I waited. I sat in my chair, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I waited for the poison to take the wrong person. I looked at Patricia. She was still on the floor, scrubbing a stain that wasn't there. She knew what I had done. She didn't say a word. The house was quiet. The sun was still shining. The dust motes danced in the light. And then Claire frowned. She touched her throat. She coughed, a small, dry cough. "Excuse me," she said. She coughed again. Harder. "Are you okay?" I asked. My voice was calm, scarily calm. Claire started to say, but her voice cut out. She grabbed her neck. Her eyes went wide. The cup fell from her hand. It didn't break this time. It rolled across the table, spilling the dark liquid again. Claire stood up. She tried to scream, but only a choking sound came out. She clawed at the air. She looked at me. And in that second she knew. She knew that I knew. And then she fell. Claire hit the floor hard. It was not a graceful fall. It was the sound of dead weight hitting expensive wood. Her head cracked against the leg of the dining chair. The room was suddenly very small. The air felt thin. I sat in my chair. My hands were still wrapped around the warm red mug, the mug filled with water. I did not move. I could not move. It felt like my feet were nailed to the floorboards. "Claire," I whispered. She did not answer. She was on her back. Her eyes were open, but they were rolling up into her head. All I could see was the white part. It was terrifying. Her body started to shake. At first, it was just a tremble. Then it became violent. Her heels drummed against the floor. Thump, 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 thump. Her arms flailed around, hitting the chair, hitting the table leg. Foam started to bubble at the corners of her mouth. It was pink. She had bitten her tongue. I watched her. I watched the woman who had just tried to kill me. Minutes ago, she was smiling. She was planning my funeral. She was thinking about how she would spend my money. Now, she was fighting for air. A strange feeling washed over me. It wasn't happiness. It wasn't victory. It was a cold, hollow shock. I looked at her convulsing body and I thought, that was supposed to be me. If Patricia hadn't pushed the table, if I hadn't switched the cups, I would be the one on the floor. My son would be watching me die. David, I screamed. My voice broke the frozen silence. David, help! I heard the printer stop buzzing in the study. I heard heavy footsteps running down the hall. What now? David yelled. What is it now? He burst into the room. He was holding a stack of fresh, warm papers. He looked annoyed. He looked ready to yell at Patricia again. Then he saw his wife. The papers slipped from his hands. They fluttered to the floor like giant snowflakes, landing in the spilled coffee. Claire, David said. His voice was small. He sounded like a little boy. He ran to her. He dropped to his knees. The knees of his expensive gray suit hit the puddle of coffee. He didn't care. Claire, baby, what's wrong? He grabbed her shoulders. He tried to hold her still, but she was shaking too hard. Her back arched off the floor. Her teeth were clenched tight. She was making a terrible gargling sound deep in her throat. David looked up at me. His eyes were wide with panic, but there was something else in his eyes too. Confusion. Mom, he shouted. What happened? What did she do? She drank her coffee, I said. My voice was flat. I was amazed at how steady I sounded. She took a sip, and then she fell. David froze. He looked at the table. He looked at the red mug in my hand. Then he looked at the green mug lying on its side on the floor next to Claire. I saw the realization hit him. It was like a physical blow. His face went pale. All the blood drained out of his skin. He looked at the green mug and he knew. He knew because he was part of it. The green cup, he whispered. She drank from the green cup. Yes, I said. She wanted to join me. David looked back at Claire. Her shaking was slowing down, but her breathing was shallow and ragged. She was turning blue around the lips. Oh God, David moaned. Oh God, no. He knew exactly what was in her system. He knew exactly what was killing her. Call 911, I yelled at him. David, call an ambulance. He didn't move. He stared at his wife. He was paralyzed. I realized then that he was calculating. He was doing math in his head. If he called 911, they would ask questions. They would find the poison. If they found the poison, they would ask where it came from. He was hesitating. His wife was dying on the rug and he was worried about getting caught. David, I stood up. I slammed my hand on the table. Call them now, he snapped out of it. He fumbled for his phone in his pocket. His hands were shaking so badly he dropped it twice. I can't unlock it, he stammered. My fingers are sweating. Patricia stepped forward. She had been standing in the corner, silent as a ghost. She held out her own phone. I have already called them, sir, Patricia said. Her voice was ice cold. They are 2 minutes away. David looked at Patricia with pure hatred. For a second, I thought he was going to hit her. He hated that she was calm. He hated that she was witnessing this. You, David snarled, you did this. I did nothing, sir, Patricia said. I am just the maid. David turned back to Claire. Stay with me, baby, stay with me. He started to cry. It was a loud, ugly sound. But even as he cried, his eyes were darting around the room. He was looking for something. He looked at the spilled coffee. He looked at the green mug. Suddenly, he stopped crying. He reached out and grabbed the green mug from the floor. David, what are you doing? I asked. I need to clean this up, he said. His voice was frantic. The paramedics, they can't slip, it's slippery. He was lying. He wanted to hide the cup. He wanted to wash it. He wanted to get rid of the evidence before the police arrived. He scrambled up. He ran toward the kitchen with the green mug. David, I shouted, leave it, help your wife. I have to wash it, he screamed back. I have to wash it. He ran into the kitchen. I heard the tap turn on full blast. I heard the clinking of ceramic against the metal sink. He was scrubbing it. He was scrubbing away the poison he had meant for me. I looked down at Claire. She had stopped convulsing. Now she was just twitching. Her skin was gray. She looked like a wax doll that had been left in the sun. I felt a wave of nausea. I sat back down. I felt heavy. This was my family. This was the son I had breastfed. This was the son I had sat up with when he had the chicken pox. This was the son I had paid for, protected, and loved for 35 years. And right now, he was in the kitchen washing a murder weapon while his wife died on my floor. The sirens started. First, they were faint, a distant wail, then they got louder and louder. They filled the room. They filled my head. David ran back into the dining room. His hands were wet. The green mug was gone. "Where is the cup, David?" I asked quietly. "I put it away," he said breathlessly. He knelt back down beside Claire. "It doesn't matter. It's just a cup." The front door burst open. Patricia had gone to let them in. Paramedics in uniforms rushed in. They were carrying heavy bags. They brought a stretcher. The room was suddenly full of noise and chaos. Static from radios. Heavy boots on the floor, voices shouting orders. "What happened?" a tall paramedic asked. He knelt beside Claire. He shone a light in her eyes. "She collapsed," David sobbed. He was playing the role of the grieving husband now. He was good at it. "We were just talking and she fell. Is it a heart attack? Is it a stroke?" "How old is she?" 32, David said. "Any medical history, allergies?" "No, nothing. She is healthy. She does yoga." The paramedic frowned. He looked at Claire's blue lips. He smelled the air. "What is that smell?" the paramedic asked. "Did she vomit?" "No," David said quickly. "It's coffee, just coffee." The paramedic didn't look convinced. "Check her airway," he told his partner. "Start an IV. We need to go, now." They lifted Claire onto the stretcher. Her body was limp. Her head lolled to the side. She looked dead already. "I'm coming with her," David yelled. "One family member only in the back," the paramedic said. David looked at me. He looked torn. He wanted to go with Claire, but he also didn't want to leave me alone in the house. He didn't want to leave me with Patricia. He was afraid of what we might say. "Mom," David said, "you stay here, you rest. I will call you from the hospital." "No," I said. I stood up. I felt strong again. Stronger than I had felt in years. "I am coming too." "There is no room," David argued. "You are sick." "I am not sick," I said, staring him in the eyes. "I am fine. I will drive myself. Patricia will drive me." David narrowed his eyes. "Patricia stays here. She has to clean up this mess." "Patricia drives me," I said firmly, "or I will tell the police to drive me." David flinched at the word police. "Fine," he snapped. "Just, don't say anything to anyone until I get there." "You are confused, Mom. You are in shock. Don't talk to people." He climbed into the back of the ambulance. The doors slammed shut. I watched through the window as the ambulance sped away. The red lights flashed against the trees in the driveway. It looked like a nightmare. I turned to Patricia. She was standing by the kitchen door. She was holding something in a plastic bag. It was the green mug. "He didn't wash it well enough," Patricia said softly. He was in a panic. "He left it on the drying rack. I took it." "He will look for it," I said. "Let him look," Patricia said. She put the bag in her large purse. "This is our insurance now." "Thank you, Patricia," I said. "You saved my life." "We are not safe yet," she said. "We have to go to the hospital. We have to see what happens." "Do you think she will die?" I asked. Patricia looked at the wet stain on the rug where Claire had fallen. "That was a lot of poison, Mrs. Whitlock," she said. "It worked very fast. If she lives, she will not be the same." We walked out to my car. It was a big, black Mercedes. I used to love this car. David had convinced me to buy it. He said it was safe. Now I wondered if he had cut the brakes. I shook the thought away. Patricia got in the driver's seat. I got in the back. The ride to the hospital was quiet. I looked out the window at the town I had lived in for 40 years. I saw the park, where I used to take David to play on the swings. I saw the ice cream shop, where we used to go on Sundays. I saw his elementary school. I remembered a day when he was 6. He had scraped his knee. He came running to me, crying, blood running down his leg. "Mommy, fix it," he had sobbed. "Make it better." I had cleaned it. I had put a bandage on it. I had kissed his forehead. I would have done anything to take the pain away from him. I would have died for him. And now he wanted me dead for money. The tears finally came. I didn't sob. I just let them fall silently down my cheeks. It hurt more than any physical pain. It was a tearing in my chest. My heart was breaking. We arrived at the hospital. The emergency entrance was crowded. I saw the ambulance. The doors were open. It was empty. They had already taken Claire inside. Patricia parked the car. "Are you ready?" she asked. I wiped my face. I put on my sunglasses to hide my red eyes. "Yes," I said. "I am ready." We walked into the waiting room. It smelled like antiseptic and old coffee. It was a smell I knew well. I had spent weeks here when my husband was dying of cancer. David was pacing back and forth. He had taken off his suit jacket. His tie was loose. He looked wild. When he saw me, he stopped pacing. He rushed over. "Why is she here?" he hissed, pointing at Patricia. "I told you to leave her at the house." "She is my driver," I said calmly. "Sit down, David. You are making a scene." "A scene?" David laughed. It was a manic, high-pitched laugh. "My wife is dying in there. The doctors are asking me crazy questions. They are asking what she ate. They are asking if she was depressed. They think she did this to herself." "Did you tell them the truth?" I asked. David froze. He looked around to see if anyone was listening. He leaned close to me. He smelled like sweat and fear. "What truth?" he whispered harshly. "That there was poison in the coffee. If I say that, they will ask who put it there." "Do you want to go to jail, Mom?" I stared at him. "Me? Why would I go to jail?" "Because it was your house," David hissed. "It was your coffee. If they find out it was poison, they will think you did it, or they will think I did it. We will both go to prison. Is that what you want? To spend your last years in a cell?" He was trying to manipulate me. He was trying to scare me into silence. He thought I was a confused old woman who would believe anything he said. He didn't know I had seen the switch. He didn't know I had the mug. "So what did you tell them?" I asked. "I told them it was a seizure," David said. "I told them she has a history of epilepsy." "I lied, Mom. I lied to protect us." "To protect us," I repeated, "or to protect yourself." "We are family," David said, desperate. "We are all we have to stick together." Just then, a doctor came through the double doors. He looked tired. He was holding a clipboard. "Family of Claire Whitlock," he called out. David ran to him. "I am her husband. Is she okay?" The doctor looked at David, then at me. He looked serious. "She is in a coma," the doctor said. "We managed to stabilize her heart, but her system, it has taken a massive hit. Her kidneys are failing, her liver is shutting down." David covered his mouth with his hand. "Will she wake up?" "We don't know," the doctor said. "We are running toxicology screens now. The symptoms, they are very aggressive. It looks like toxicity." "Mr. Whitlock, I need to ask you again. Are you sure she didn't ingest anything? Chemicals? Cleaning fluids? Medication?" David swallowed hard. I saw his Adam's apple move. "No," David said. "Nothing. The tests will tell us," the doctor said. "It will take about an hour to get the results. You can wait here." The doctor turned and walked away. David collapsed onto a plastic chair. He put his head in his hands. I sat down opposite him. Patricia stood behind my chair like a guard. "David," I said. He didn't look up. "What? Why did you do it?" He looked up then. His eyes were red. "Do what?" "Don't lie to me," I said. My voice was very low so only he could hear. "I know. You don't know anything," he spat. "You are senile." "I am not senile," I said. "I saw the drops." "Patricia saw the drops, and I saw you watching her." David's face twisted. The mask fell off completely. For the first time, he didn't look like my son. He looked like a stranger. A dangerous stranger. "You should have just signed the papers," he whispered. There was so much venom in his voice. "You selfish old witch. You should have just signed the papers and died quietly. You lived your life. You had your turn. Why couldn't you just let go?" I felt a cold chill go down my spine. He admitted it. He didn't even care anymore. "I am your mother," I said. "You are a roadblock," he said. "You sit on that money like a dragon. You don't spend it, you don't enjoy it, you just work. Claire and I, we have dreams, we have debts. We needed that money now, not in 10 years when you finally drop dead of old age. So you decided to kill me. It would have been painless," he said. He sounded almost reasonable, as if he was explaining a business decision. "It was just a few drops, like falling asleep. Claire messed it up. She was always greedy. She probably put too much in. Or she messed up the cups." He looked at me with disgust. "You are lucky," he said, "but you won't be lucky forever." "Are you threatening me, David?" "I am telling you the truth," he said. "Who are they going to believe, me? The grieving husband? Or you, the old woman with dementia who thinks her family is trying to kill her?" He leaned back in the chair. He looked confident again. He thought he had won. He thought he could talk his way out of this. He thought he could still control the narrative. "I will tell the doctors that you gave her the coffee," David said calmly. "I will tell them you made it. Patricia works for you. She will lie for you. But I will tell the police that you have been confusing your medications. That you must have put your heart medicine in her coffee by mistake. It will be a tragic accident. You will be sent to a home. And I will get power of attorney." I stared at him. He had it all planned out. Even now, with his wife dying in the next room, he was planning how to frame me. He was a monster, and I had raised him. I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was Patricia. She squeezed my shoulder gently. It was a signal. Stay calm. I took a deep breath. You are right, David, I said. It is my word against yours. Exactly, he said. And I am the future. You are the past. I looked at the clock on the wall. It was 11:30 a.m. I am thirsty, I said. Patricia, please go get me a water. Yes, ma'am, Patricia said. She walked toward the vending machines. I need coffee, David said. He stood up. I need to wake up. This is going to be a long day. He walked away toward the hospital cafeteria. I sat alone in the waiting room. I watched the people around me. A mother holding a crying baby. An old man in a wheelchair. A teenager with a broken arm. Normal people with normal problems. I reached into my purse. I pulled out my phone. I pressed the button to stop the recording. I had started the voice memo app on my phone when we walked into the hospital. I had recorded every word David just said. You are a roadblock. It would have been painless. I will tell the police that you have been confusing your medications. I had it all. I looked at the phone in my hand. It was a small black rectangle, but it was heavier than the company. It was heavier than the house. It was the end of my son. Patricia came back with a bottle of water. She sat down next to me. Did you get it? She whispered. Yes, I said. I got it. Patricia nodded. Good, now we wait for the police. He thinks he is smarter than me, I said. He thinks I am weak. He forgot who you are, Patricia said. You are Isabella Whitlock. You built a kingdom from dust. He is just a boy who plays with toys. I took a sip of the water. It was cool and clean. It washed the taste of betrayal from my mouth. Patricia, I said, when the police come, I want you to give them the cup. I will. And I want you to tell them everything. About the drops. About the library conversation. Everything. I will. And then, I said, looking at the door where David had exited, I am going to destroy him. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the witness. I was the prosecutor. I was the judge. The doors opened. 2 police officers walked in. They walked up to the reception desk. They spoke to the nurse. The nurse pointed to the emergency doors. Then she pointed to me. The officers turned. They started walking toward me. I sat up straight. I smoothed my skirt. I lifted my chin. I was ready. The 2 police officers stopped in front of me. One was older, with a gray mustache and kind eyes. The other was younger, sharp, and holding a notebook. Mrs. Whitlock? The older officer asked. Before I could answer, David appeared. He had come back from the cafeteria with a paper cup of coffee in his hand. He saw the uniforms and rushed over. He put on his worried son face again. It was a mask he wore very well. Officers, David said, breathless. Thank God you are here. I am David Whitlock. The patient, Claire, is my wife. This is my mother, Isabella. Mr. Whitlock, the officer nodded. We are here to get a statement. The hospital called us. They said the circumstances of your wife's collapse were unusual. It is terrible, David said. He shook his head. He put a hand on my shoulder. It felt heavy, like a stone. My mother, she is very shaken up. She is elderly. She gets confused easily. I sat very still. I did not shake his hand off. I let him dig his own grave. We just want to ask a few questions, the younger officer said. He looked at me. Mrs. Whitlock, can you tell us what happened? Of course, I said. My voice was clear. It was strong. It did not sound like the voice of a confused old woman. David tightened his grip on my shoulder. His fingers dug into my bone. It was a warning. Mom, he said sweetly, maybe I should talk to them. You are tired. You might get the details mixed up again, like you did with your medication this morning. There it was, the lie. He was planting the seed right in front of the police. He was suggesting that I had mixed up my pills, that I had accidentally poisoned his wife. I looked up at the officer. I took off my sunglasses. I looked him straight in the eye. I am not tired, officer, I said. And I am not confused. I know exactly what day it is. I know exactly who I am, and I know exactly what happened in my dining room. David froze. He hadn't expected me to push back. He thought I would be cowed by the police. He thought I would be scared. I would like to speak to you, I said to the officer, but I would like to speak to you alone, without my son. The older officer looked at David's hand on my shoulder. He looked at the tension in David's jaw. Sir, the officer said politely, could you give us a moment? Why don't you go check on your wife? David looked trapped. If he refused, he looked suspicious. If he left, he lost control of the narrative. I just don't want her to say anything that isn't true, David stammered. She has been having episodes. We are trained to handle that, sir, the officer said. Please. Step aside. David let go of my shoulder. He glared at me. It was a look of pure venom. Then he turned and walked back toward the emergency room doors. I watched him go. I watched his expensive suit, his confident walk. And I felt a wave of memories crash over me. I looked at the officers. Please give me a moment, I said. I need to collect my thoughts. Take your time, ma'am, the officer said. I closed my eyes. I needed to find my strength. I needed to remember who I was. Because for the last 6 months, David had made me feel like a weak, dying old woman. But I wasn't. I went back in my mind. 15 years. 15 years ago, my husband, Robert, died. It was a heart attack. It was sudden. One minute he was laughing at the breakfast table, the next he was gone. I was 48. David was 20. Robert had started the Whitlock Supply Group. It was a small logistics company then. We had 5 trucks and a rented warehouse. When he died, everyone expected me to sell. The competitors circled like vultures. They called me. Isabella, sell to us, they said. You don't know how to run a supply chain. It's a man's world. Go home, bake cookies, enjoy the life insurance. David was in college then. He came home for the funeral. He told me the same thing. Sell it, Mom, he had said. Take the money. We can go on vacation. But I didn't sell. I went to the office the day after the funeral. I wore my black dress. I sat at Robert's desk. The chair was too big for me. The men in the warehouse looked at me with doubt. They whispered. They bet on how long I would last. I lasted. I didn't just last. I worked. I worked harder than Robert ever did. I learned every route. I learned how to fix a transmission on a semi-truck. I learned how to negotiate contracts with suppliers who tried to cheat me because I was a woman. I worked nights. I worked weekends. I missed dinners. I missed holidays. I poured my grief into concrete and steel. I grew the company. 5 trucks became 10, then 50, then 100. We expanded to 3 states. I became the CEO of one of the biggest supply groups in the region. I did it alone. And where was David during those years? He was enjoying the fruits of my labor. I paid for his tuition. I paid for his apartment. I paid for his car. When he graduated, I created a job for him at the company, Vice President of Strategy. It was a made-up title. I wanted him to learn. I wanted him to work by my side. But David didn't want to work. He wanted to be the boss. He would come in at 10 a.m. He would leave at 3 p.m. for golf. He bought expensive suits. He yelled at the drivers. He treated the secretaries like servants. He didn't understand that the money didn't come from magic. It came from sweat. It came from the drivers sleeping in their cabs. It came from me staying up until 4 a.m. checking the ledgers. He saw the company as a piggy bank. I saw it as a legacy. And then he met Claire. Claire was a marketing consultant. She was sharp, ambitious, and hungry. She saw David and she saw a golden ticket. She saw a weak man with a rich mother. They married fast. The spending increased. New house, new cars, vacations to Bali, to Paris, to Dubai. They always needed more. And I always gave it to them. I was guilty. I felt guilty that I had worked so much when David was a child. I tried to buy his love with money. That was my mistake. You cannot buy love, you can only rent it. And when the money stops, the tenant leaves. Or, in my case, the tenant tries to kill the landlord. I opened my eyes. The hospital waiting room came back into focus. The police officer was still waiting patiently. Patricia was sitting next to me, her hand on her purse. I wasn't the weak old woman David thought I was. I was Isabella Whitlock. I had fought unions. I had fought banks. I had fought grief. I could fight my son. Officer, I said. I am ready to talk. Tell us about the coffee, the officer said. My daughter-in-law made it, I said. She brought it to me, but my housekeeper, Patricia, accidentally spilled it. Accidentally? The officer asked. He was writing in his notebook. That is what it looked like, I said. But then, Patricia warned me. Warned you? She told me not to drink it, I said. She told me she had seen Claire put something in the cup. The officer stopped writing. He looked up, his eyes were sharp now. She saw her put something in the cup. What exactly? Patricia spoke up. Drops, she said, her voice was steady. From a small glass bottle, she wore gloves. She smiled when she did it. The officer looked at Patricia. And you are the housekeeper? Yes, sir. So what happened next? The officer asked me. I didn't believe it at first, I said, but Patricia insisted. She told me to switch the cups. There was a cup of water on the sideboard. When Claire wasn't looking, I poured the coffee into an empty mug and took the water. And then, I took a deep breath. Claire sat down. She picked up the mug I had poured the coffee into. I didn't realize it was her mug. I thought it was a spare. She drank it. The officer was staring at me. This was a wild story. It sounded like a movie plot. I could see the doubt in his eyes. And then she collapsed. Yes, I said, immediately. And your son, where was he? He was there, I said. He watched her make the coffee, he knew. He knew. He tried to wash the cup, I said. While his wife was dying on the floor, he ran to the kitchen to wash the cup. The officer looked at his partner. They exchanged a look. It was a look that said, "This is serious." "Do you have proof?" the officer asked. "This is a very heavy accusation, Mrs. Whitlock. Your son says you are confused." "I have proof," Patricia said. She reached into her large purse. She pulled out the plastic bag. Inside was the green mug. It was still wet. There was a brown residue at the bottom. "He didn't wash it well enough," Patricia said. "I took it from the drying rack before the ambulance arrived." The officer put on a pair of blue latex gloves. He took the bag from Patricia carefully. He held it up to the light. "If we test this," the officer said, "what will we find?" "Poison," I said. Just then, the double doors of the emergency room swung open. The doctor came out again. He was walking fast. He looked grim. He spotted David coming from the hallway, and he spotted the police officers with me. "Mr. Whitlock, officers," the doctor called out. David ran over. "What is it? Is she awake?" "No," the doctor said. He looked at the police officers. "We have the preliminary toxicology results." The room went silent. I could hear the hum of the vending machine. I could hear my own heartbeat. "What is it?" David asked. His voice cracked. "It is cyanide," the doctor said. David let out a gasp. He staggered back. He put his hand against the wall to steady himself. "Cyanide?" the officer repeated. "A massive dose," the doctor said. "It was in her stomach. We are pumping it, but the damage is severe. We have contacted the Poison Control Center. But officers, this is not something you buy at the grocery store. This is industrial grade." The older officer turned to David. His face was no longer kind. It was hard. "Mr. Whitlock," the officer said, "you told us she had no medical history. You didn't mention cyanide." I didn't know," David shouted. He was sweating now. Sweat was running down his forehead. "She must have. She must have done it herself. She was depressed, I told you." "Depressed people usually leave a note," the officer said. "They don't usually drink coffee with their mother-in-law." "She was unstable," David yelled. He pointed at me. "Or maybe she did it. My mother, she hated Claire. She was jealous." He was losing control. He was flailing. I stood up. I walked over to them. I stood next to the police officer. "I did not hate her, David," I said. "I pitied her." "And I pity you." "Shut up," David screamed at me. "You are trying to frame me. You and that maid, you planned this." Patricia stood up too. She walked over to us. She was holding a manila envelope. I hadn't seen her bring it. She must have had it in her bag the whole time. "Officers," Patricia said, "I think you should see this." "What is this?" the officer asked. "I have been watching them," Patricia said, "for 3 months." David's eyes went wide. "What?" "I saw the changes in Mrs. Whitlock," Patricia said. "I saw her getting dizzy. I saw her getting sick only after she ate dinner with them, so I started watching. I started listening." Patricia opened the envelope. She pulled out a stack of photos. She handed them to the officer. "This is a photo of Claire's car," Patricia explained. "Parked behind an industrial chemical supply store in the city, taken 3 weeks ago." She pulled out another photo. "This is David, meeting with an insurance agent at a coffee shop. I sat at the table behind them. I recorded the conversation." She pulled out a USB drive. "They took out a double indemnity policy on Mrs. Whitlock's life," Patricia said. $5 million. It pays out double if the death is accidental, like an accidental overdose of heart medication." David was shaking. He looked like he was going to vomit. You spied on us," David whispered. "I protected my employer," Patricia said, "because she is the only decent person in this family." The officer looked at the photos. He looked at the mug in the evidence bag. He looked at the doctor who had confirmed the cyanide. He turned to David. "Mr. Whitlock," the officer said, "I think we need to go down to the station." "No," David said. He backed away. "No, this is a mistake. You can't trust her. She is just a maid." "I am a witness," Patricia said. "And I have a recording too," I added. I held up my phone. "From 10 minutes ago, in this waiting room, when you told me that I was a roadblock and that it would have been painless. David looked at the phone in my hand. He looked at the recording app that was still open on the screen. He realized then that it was over. The arrogance drained out of him. The power of the suit, the title, the money, it all vanished. He was just a small, scared man who had tried to kill his mother and failed. "Mom," he whimpered, "please don't do this." He reached out his hand to me, the hand that had tried to sign my death warrant. "Mom, I'm your son. I'm your baby." I looked at him. I remembered the little boy with the scraped knee. I remembered the boy I taught to ride a bike. I remembered the boy I loved more than my own life. But that boy was gone. He had been dead for a long time. The man standing in front of me was a stranger. "My son is dead," I said. My voice broke, but I held my ground. "You are just a murderer." I turned my back on him. "Officer," I said, "arrest him." The officer nodded. He pulled out his handcuffs. The metal clicked. "David Whitlock," the officer said, "put your hands behind your back. You are under arrest for the attempted murder of Isabella Whitlock and the poisoning of Claire Whitlock." "No," David screamed. "It was Claire, it was all Claire's idea. She bought the poison, she did it. I just watched. He was selling her out. Even now he was trying to save himself. The officers dragged him away. He was crying and screaming, his expensive shoes sliding on the hospital floor. Everyone in the waiting room watched. I didn't watch. I looked at the wall. I looked at a poster about washing hands to prevent infection. I felt numb. Patricia came and stood beside me. She didn't say anything. She just stood there, a solid presence in a world that had crumbled. "Is he gone?" I asked after a moment. "Yes, ma'am," Patricia said. "He is gone." I let out a long breath. My legs felt weak. I sat down on the hard plastic chair. "It is over," I said. "Not yet," Patricia said gently. "Now comes the hard part." She was right. The adrenaline was fading. The reality was setting in. I was 63. I was a widow, and now I was childless. My family was gone. My legacy was tainted. "What do I do now, Patricia?" I asked. I felt small. "I have nothing left." Patricia sat down next to me. She took my hand. Her hand was rough from years of scrubbing floors. It was a worker's hand, an honest hand. "You have the company," Patricia said. "You have your life, and you have the truth." "The truth is ugly," I said. "The truth is clean," Patricia corrected. "Lies are dirty. The house is clean now, Mrs. Whitlock. We took out the trash." I looked at her. A small smile touched my lips. It was a sad smile, but it was real. "You are right," I said. "We took out the trash." "And," Patricia added, "you have me if you want me." "Patricia," I said, "I don't want you to be my housekeeper anymore." Patricia looked worried. "You are firing me." "No," I said, "I am promoting you. I need a partner. I need someone I can trust, someone who sees everything." Patricia smiled. "I would like that." The doctor came back over to us. "Mrs. Whitlock," he said, "your daughter-in-law, she is stabilized. She is in a coma, but she is breathing on her own. The police will want to guard her room." "Will she survive?" I asked. "It is possible," the doctor said, "but there will likely be brain damage, the lack of oxygen." It was significant. I nodded. Claire would live, but she would live in a prison. First a prison of her own body and then a prison of concrete. "Thank you, doctor," I said. I stood up. I smoothed my skirt again. "Let's go, Patricia," I said. "I need to go home. I have a company to run." "Yes, ma'am," Patricia said. We walked out of the hospital. The automatic doors opened. The air outside was fresh and cool. The sun was still shining. It was the same day, the same sun, but the world was different. I walked to the car. I didn't get in the back seat this time. "Give me the keys," I said to Patricia. "You want to drive?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "I think I am done being a passenger." Patricia handed me the keys. I got into the driver's seat. I adjusted the mirror. I started the engine. The engine purred. It sounded powerful. I put the car in gear. I drove away from the hospital. I drove away from my son. I drove away from the past. I was Isabella Whitlock, and I was just getting started. We drove back to the house in silence. I parked the Mercedes in the driveway. The house looked exactly the same as when we had left it 2 hours ago. The front door was still unlocked. The windows were still open. It looked like a perfect, stately home, a place where a happy family lived. But when we walked inside, the air felt different. It felt dead. We walked into the dining room. The coffee stain was still there on the rug, a dark, ugly brown splotch. It was already drying. The papers, the contracts I was supposed to sign, were still scattered on the floor. Some were soaked with coffee. Some were crinkled from where David had stomped on them. I looked at the mess. This was my life. Or it was the life I had almost lost. "I will clean it," Patricia said. She moved to get the bucket. "No," I said. "Leave it." Patricia stopped. "Leave it. The police will want to see it," I said. "They will want to see where Claire fell. They will want to see the papers." I walked over to the table. I picked up the pen I had been holding, the heavy black pen. I looked at the signature line on the damp contract. Isabella Whitlock. I snapped the pen in half. It broke with a sharp crack. Ink bled onto my fingers. "I am never signing anything again," I said. "Not for him." The next few weeks were a blur of blue uniforms and gray suits. The police turned my house into a crime scene. They found the bottle of cyanide in the garage, hidden inside a box of old golf balls. They found the search history on David's laptop, how to mimic a heart attack, undetectable poisons, inheritance tax laws. It was thorough. It was cold. It was calculated. They found the financial records, too. Patricia had seen some of them, but the forensic accountants found everything. David wasn't just impatient. He was broke. He and Claire had burned through everything I had given them. They had mortgaged their own house 3 times. They had maxed out credit cards in my name, cards I didn't know existed. They owed money to dangerous people, gambling debts, investment scams. They needed the company not just for greed, but for survival. They were drowning, and they decided to use my body as a raft to save themselves. I sat in my lawyer's office a month after the arrest. The lawyer, Mr. Henderson, was a quiet man. He looked at the stack of evidence. "Isabella," he said gently, "David is asking for a deal. He wants to plead guilty to a lesser charge, attempted manslaughter. He says he was coerced by Claire. He says he will testify against her if you ask for leniency." I looked out the window. It was raining. The city looked gray. "Leniency?" I asked. "He is your son," Mr. Henderson said. "Juries can be unpredictable and prison is a hard place." I thought about the morning in the dining room. I thought about the bitter almond smell. I thought about David washing the cup while Claire convulsed. "He didn't want leniency for me," I said. "He wanted a coffin." "So?" Mr. Henderson asked. "No deal," I said. "No mercy. I want him to stand trial. I want everyone to hear what he did." The trial happened 6 months later. It was not a circus. There were no cameras allowed in the courtroom. It was quiet. It was serious. I sat in the front row. Patricia sat next to me. Claire was not there. Claire was in a long-term care facility. She had woken up from the coma, but she wasn't Claire anymore. The cyanide had starved her brain of oxygen for too long. She couldn't speak. She couldn't feed herself. She stared at walls. She had brewed her own poison, and now she had to live in it. So it was just David. He walked into the courtroom in an orange jumpsuit. He had lost weight. His hair was messy. He didn't look like the powerful heir to the Whitlock empire anymore. He looked like a scared, pathetic man. He tried to catch my eye. He mouthed the word "Mom." I looked through him. I looked at the judge. The prosecutor was direct. He didn't use fancy words. He just laid out the facts. He showed the photos Patricia had taken. He showed the financial records. He showed the green mug. And then he played the recording. The courtroom was silent. My voice came through the speakers, tinny and small. "Why did you do it?" Then David's voice, loud, arrogant. "You are a roadblock. You sit on that money like a dragon. It would have been painless." David closed his eyes when he heard his own voice. He slumped in his chair. The jury looked at him. They didn't look angry. They looked disgusted. There was no shouting. There were no dramatic objections. It was just the weight of the truth crushing him slowly. When I took the stand, I didn't cry. "Mrs. Whitlock," the defense attorney asked me, "did you love your son?" "Yes," I said. "I loved him more than anything." "Then how can you testify against him?" "Because," I said, looking directly at David, "a mother's job is to teach her child right from wrong. I failed to teach him that when he was a boy, so I am teaching him now." The verdict took 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Attempted murder in the first degree. Conspiracy. Fraud. The judge sentenced him to 25 years without parole. As the bailiffs led him away, David screamed. It wasn't a scream of remorse, it was a scream of rage. "It's mine," he yelled. "That company is mine. You can't take it." The heavy wooden doors closed behind him. I sat on the bench for a long time. The courtroom emptied out. The lights dimmed. Patricia touched my arm. "Are you ready to go home?" "No," I said. "I don't have a home anymore." I sold the house the next week. I couldn't live there. Every room had a memory of him. The kitchen where he ate his cereal. The backyard where he learned to catch a ball. The dining room where he tried to kill me. I sold it to a young couple with 3 children. I hoped they would fill it with new, happier memories. I bought a condo in the city. It was sleek, modern, and had a view of the skyline. It had no ghosts. I went back to the office. The first day I walked back into Whitlock Supply, the mood was tense. The employees knew what had happened. It was all over the news. Local CEO poisoned by son. They looked at me with pity. They expected a broken woman. I walked to the front of the room. I stood on the podium. "Good morning," I said. My voice was steady. "You have all heard the stories. They are true. My family is gone." The room was silent. "But," I continued, "this company is my family too. You are my family, and we have work to do." I didn't retire. I didn't hide. I worked. But I worked differently. I stopped working 18-hour days. I stopped trying to control everything. I realized that life was short, and it could be taken away in a sip of coffee. I called Patricia into my office one morning. She was wearing her housekeeper uniform. She looked out of place in the corporate office. "Sit down, Patricia," I said. She sat on the edge of the leather chair. "Do you need me to get your lunch, Mrs. Whitlock?" "No," I said. "I have a new contract for you." I slid a paper across the desk. Patricia picked it up. She read it. Her eyes went wide. "Director of Internal Affairs," she read. "Mrs. Whitlock, I don't have a degree. I don't know business." "You know people," I said. "You saw what I missed. You saw the lies. You saw the danger. You have the best eyes in the world, Patricia. I need those eyes here. I need you to help me protect this company." "And the salary?" Patricia gasped. This is too much." "It is exactly enough," I said. "You saved my life. You can't put a price on that, but we can start with this." Patricia looked at me. Tears filled her eyes. She didn't say thank you, she just nodded. "I won't let you down," she said. "I know," I replied. "Now go buy some nice suits. You are an executive now." 3 years have passed since that morning. David is in a maximum security prison upstate. I don't visit him. I send him a card on his birthday. It has no money in it. Just a message. "I hope you are learning." Claire died 6 months ago. Her body finally gave up. I paid for her cremation. I scattered her ashes in the wind. I felt nothing. I am 66 now. I started a foundation last year. The Whitlock Foundation for Elder Protection. We help older people who are being exploited by their families. We provide lawyers, investigators, and safe houses. We teach them how to protect their assets. We teach them that family does not mean victim. I speak at seminars. I stand on stages in front of hundreds of people. I tell them my story. I tell them about the coffee. I tell them about the betrayal. I tell them this. We spend our lives building, I say to the crowd. We build families. We build businesses. We build homes. We think that if we give enough, if we love enough, we will be safe. I pause. I look at the faces in the audience. Many of them are like me, gray hair, lines on their faces. But love is not a shield, I say. Trust is not armor. I point to Patricia, who is usually standing at the back of the room, wearing a sharp navy suit, watching the doors. I am alive today not because of blood, I say. Blood almost killed me. I am alive because of awareness. I am alive because I listen to the uncomfortable truth instead of the comfortable lie. I lean into the microphone. Do not close your eyes, I tell them. Do not let them take your power. You earned it. You built it. It is yours. When I finish, there is usually silence. And then applause. But I don't do it for the applause. I go home to my condo. I make my own coffee now. I drink it black. I sit by the window and look at the city lights. I am alone, but I am not lonely. I have my company. I have my mission. I have my friend Patricia. And most importantly, I have my life.